27-year-old Michael Anthony Nelson of Crystal River, Florida, was arrested December 2020 on a drug-related charge after Citrus County Sheriff's Office seized 28.9 pounds of marijuana from his residence in Hernando during a search with a warrant, according to court records. A confidential informant previously twice purchased marijuana from Nelson before arranging a third buy. The CI never arrived to collect, but the police did. Nelson was charged with 4 felonies, including trafficking and cannabis, plus a misdemeanor. He ultimately pleaded no contest. None of the charges was related to guns. During his sentencing in February 2022, 2 years later, prosecutors sought a sentence of 87 months on 2 of the charges from Circuit Judge Richard Howard. Remember that name, Judge Richard Howard. Mm-hmm. The sentences for the other charges were to be served concurrently. Nelson apologized to his mother and judge and said that he agreed to sell marijuana to raise money to invest in real estate and pay for renovations of a home. I did it all out of impatience and greed. I'm a bit of an opportunist, and sometimes it works in my advantage. Sometimes it bites me in the, rear. So a little bit of context here. This is December 2020, middle of the pandemic. The whole world's flipped upside down, and Donald Trump is a mere weeks away from inciting a riot at the nation's capital in a failed attempt to steal the election he legally and lawfully lost.
Stop.
Damn, this brother saw an opportunity in the midst of chaos while Rome was literally burning all around him. He shot his shot, and he missed. I blame capitalism and Jason Beck for this one. But there was a lie that we were all sold on this American dream, and he got caught up in it. Back to the story. According to the appeals ruling, prosecutors at the hearing displayed 2 photos of firearms legally owned by Nelson that were found in Nelson's residence during the arrest as part of their agreement. The guns included a small Ruger pistol and an assault-style rifle, both legal in Florida. Prosecutors mentioned a potential murder months prior, possibly linked in their closing statements. Prosecutors mentioned a potential murder months prior, possibly linked to the sale of marijuana, without explicitly stating Nelson's name as being involved in that. Why would they even bring that up? I know why. Because they were colluding with the crooked-ass judge attempting to put yet another human being under the jail for a nonviolent cannabis crime. After sentencing Nelson, Judge Howard brought the photos of the guns back up in a statement that made absolutely no sense, given the case had nothing to do with guns, and those posted in the photo were all owned legally. Here's what Judge Howard said. And what hurts you the most, Mr. Nelson, was the photograph of those guns. They did not charge with those. I did not take that into account. But why did you do this? I do not know. Nelson appealed the case the following month, and on Friday, today, a panel of 3 last Friday, a panel of 3 appellate judges in Daytona Beach, Jordan Pratt, Eric Ensnagel, and John Harris, ruled Nelson's rights to due process had been violated during his sentencing when the trial had taken Nelson's ownership of firearms into consideration, especially considering the fact that Nelson had not been charged with a firearms-related offense and had been exercising his protected Second Amendment right as a lawful gun owner. Can I get a round of applause for that, Adam, please? The appeals judges wrote, if due process prohibits a trial court from relying on uncharged and unproven crimes when pronouncing a sentence, it prohibits the trial court from relying on the lawful exercise of a constitutional right. The panel found that the prosecutors had been unable to prove that Howard had not partially relied on Nelson's gun ownership in pronouncing the sentence, given the judge's remarks. The panel threw out Nelson's sentence and directed the chief judge to reassign the case to a different judge for a new sentencing. The new judge has not been assigned, but when he is resentenced, the time he has already served in prison will be deducted from the new sentence. He was placed in jail immediately following his sentencing back in February 2022 and is currently incarcerated at Putnam Correctional Institution in Palatka, where he was transferred April 2022, the day after his 29th birthday. So what this judge and these prosecutors did was unfortunately a story all too common, and the truth is he never got to appeal this shit. he never would have gotten to appeal this shit in a blue state. Think about that. I've never been much of a fan of Florida politics, even though Floridians do have some of the most Second Amendment friendly laws in the nation. Law enforcement protecting citizens of color's access to said rights over the years has been sporadic at best. But a broken clock is right 2 times a day, and I got to give props when they are deserved. It was 2 years too late, and now we're at that 4-year mark. Florida got this one right. Even though he's still behind bars, this young man gets a second chance to fight for his freedom in a state much more politically supportive of cannabis than it was 4 years ago. Everybody, besides Meatball Ron. But I wish you the absolute best of luck, Mr. Nelson. The 4 years that you and your family have had to suffer already for a nonviolent cannabis crime is more than anyone should have to. I'm Rico Lamite, the dopest dad on the street for High 9 News, the cannabis industry's #1 daily news show. Love to hear everybody else's thoughts on this one.
Man, so is the reason that the guns weren't allowed to be admissible in court, is that because the CI never came up to pick up the money?
No, the guns had nothing to do with the case.
Because the guns had absolutely nothing to do with the case. Okay, all right, okay.
Nothing at all.
Okay,
nothing.
And so basically they arrest him, they charge him, whatnot, and then they find the guns. But they don't add any firearms charges or any homicide charges or any
no. There's no reason for them to even bring him up.
They were just trying
at
to
all, and they brought him up like that in closing remarks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm surprised.
I'm surprised to paint him as a violent person.
I'm surprised his lawyer didn't motion to have that striked from the record.
Well, the whole sentencing was thrown out. They can't use that at all. They're about to go back to trial and fight for it again.
This is going to be interesting. Super, super interesting. What do you think about this, Dale?
Especially with the political climate right now, too.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about this, Dale?
I share your sentiments about Florida, having lived there for a full decade in my formative years. I agree. I've never understood why Second Amendment rights were not fought harder. For cannabis consumers, it basically just put a target on our back. And unfortunately, law enforcement has actually participated in perpetrating placing that target back once upon a time when credit cards were not a problem. And the local sheriff said, "Oh, you're not allowed to take credit cards anymore." And then immediately went on the news and said, "Look at all these poor, helpless patients walking around with cash or weed." And then suddenly robberies and burglaries went up, and then he pointed to all of the extra crime around cannabis. I'm glad that the conversation's out there, and I think that in the next, if we reschedule, actually solves the problem. Reschedule or deschedule. It's one of those either or. That just because we lawfully in our state consume cannabis, that we can't lawfully protect our family. I also agree that Florida takes it a bit too far on the stand your ground and also chase after them if you think they look suspicious and shoot them dead, and that's okay too. Interpretation of those laws, especially if you tend to be darker than me. So I'll just call that out loud. Back to you, Rico.
I'm a big fan of Florida's gun laws. I think they're fantastic.
Yeah, they're great. You can do whatever you want. Like, you know what, though? If you're white.
Why is it that all the people that want the guns won't let the guns in their meetings, but they can bring them into my school meetings? That's not okay with me.
I have no problem. I have no problem. I have no problem having guns in school meetings. I have no problem having guns everywhere.
It's hypocritical at best that they won't allow it into the RNC or any of those. Like, I'm just calling your bullshit out on that one.
I think they should. I think they should have guns there too. I mean, there's plenty of security and armed law enforcement and whatnot.
Why do we need guns at school?
I think we do need guns at school. Personally, I think we do.
Yeah,
I think
we need to train. The good guys with the guns did such a great job in Uvalde, didn't they? I'm gonna go on mute now. Thank you.
It's all good. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good.
No, you're right on that, Dale. I got your back on that one, Dale.
And those were kids of color, and I'm just gonna call that out too. I'm just pissed that it was a poor community school, predominantly kids of color, that they just sat outside while the parents were getting arrested for trying to run in and save their own children. That is abhorrent. The gun laws in this country are fucked up at best.
I agree with what you're saying on that.
The good guys with guns. The good guys with guns did not protect the children.
Yeah, I agree with you guys on that those guys are a disgrace to the community in regards for not going in and then going after parents that are going in. I agree with all you guys on that. 100% on that. I still think that places would be safer if
we didn't have semi-automatic weapons walking around. And
I don't believe that. I don't believe that semi-automatic weapons are the problem.
Semi-automatic weapons around yet.
I don't have a problem with semi-automatic
waiting
weapons.
Period, maybe.
I think we should have mental health checks. I think that would probably be the biggest starter in regards to that, is have a mental health check. I'm totally.
I'll say this last thing at the end.
Oh my God.
You can't yell fire in a theater. Under the First Amendment, you shouldn't be able to walk into an elementary school with a semi-automatic weapon when you're 18 years old. I'm sorry. There's got to be guardrails somewhere here.
I didn't say that you should be 18 years old and walk in with a semi-automatic. I'm saying that whatever is the security patrol for that school and is going to be guarding the school and ensuring the safety of the children, I think they should be able to have whatever weapons that they want. That's all I'm saying.
Too many schools aren't hardened like that, Jason. It's just not feasible.
Yeah,
it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. You got any thoughts on this, Dr. T?
I think you've been seeing me nod my head when Dale speaks. So, yeah, I don't need a gun in school. I don't know why you do. If people need to bring guns in school, there's a much bigger problem, and it's not that the guns are going to solve that problem. So let's really focus on the problem rather than just adding to the problem by bringing more guns to the school.
That's fair, but there's always been guns in school. I mean, kids had guns in school when I was in school. Kids were toting guns at school.
Just because there's always been guns in school doesn't mean.
When you and I were in school, Jason, we still had the assault weapons ban going on. It was safer. We were still ducking and covering for like frickin' hurricanes where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my 6-year-old is doing fucking gun drills at her elementary school. Like this is about. I mean, I realize this is about safe access, and a lot of these conversations cross over about prohibition, but we're not selling cannabis to 13-year-olds out of dispensaries either. There's just
you know who I actually blame. You know who I actually blame for this more than the actual guns, Dale. In all honesty and seriousness, is I blame the pharmaceutical industry with all of these intoxicating substances and whatnot, like the Zolofts and all of these different antidepressants that they're putting all of our kids on. That a lot of these kids that do these types of shootings wouldn't
be able to do that many deaths in 30 seconds if they didn't have a semi-automatic weapon that could shoot that many rounds that fast with bump stocks and extra freaking. I mean, like, I'm sorry, you can have mental issues and kill 2 or 3 people with a revolver instead of 30 people in under a minute. Like, there's just a whole other level of death and destruction with availability to these things. And I wouldn't want availability of dangerous drugs that have the effective dose so close to the deadly dose either. And that's what you're talking about with like ramping up with all of the accidental deaths and suicides. There is a
I believe a number of those. I believe a number of those school shooters, Dale. I believe a number of those school shooters are all on these mental illness drugs and whatnot, and I believe that that's a big cause that the pharmaceutical industry is trying to cover up, because none of these kids get any type of.
We agree.
Yeah.
We agree.
And on that, we're going to go to commercial. And we're going to be right back.
Afraid to walk in because they are outgunned by the 18-year-old. Or the 14-year-old whose parents bought him a gun.
And we're going to go to a commercial, and we're going to be right back.